have this niggly little dream or desire to do something, but then you go, "Ugh, I'm too old for that"? Maybe it's travel, maybe write a book, maybe fall in love again. Or perhaps it's to start your own podcast at age 69. Well, that's what my next guest has done. She has done so much. Former professional singer, real estate agent, transformational coach, and a happy for no reason trainer. She has done so much. We have tons going on. Please join me for our interview and conversation in today's episode. Welcome to the Fabulous at 50 podcast, where we are changing the aging narrative. I'm your host, Joanne Newduck, and I'm thrilled to bring you stories that matter and celebrate your place in the world. As an advocate for lifelong learning, health, and women's empowerment, I believe it's never too late to live the life you've always imagined. Through lively and informative interviews with inspiring guests, we'll explore a wide range of topics relevant to our global sisterhood of vibrant, inquiring women just like you. Join me for today's episode, and let's start changing the aging narrative together. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode. Are you in for a treat? You know how this season, the overarching theme is talking all about let's change the aging narrative. Well, this woman is changing the aging narrative. She has more on the go now, I think, than probably ever in her life. I am welcoming here today Susan Whalen Janzen. Welcome, welcome.
Oh, I'm so pleased to be here. Just so great to actually see your face, see our faces side by side. This is awesome. Thank you.
I know, it's wonderful. We've had quite a few phone calls leading up to this interview. Now, before you and I dive into our juicy conversation, and it's going to go all over the place, I'm sure, because there's so many fascinating topics, I just want to share with our listeners and those watching in a little bit about your bio. So, Susan is an empowerment and transformational coach. She is a former professional singer, teacher, certified happy for no reason trainer, realtor, and podcaster. You have a lot going on. I hope we can touch base on a little bit of all of those. And I know that you specialize in empowering professional women to boost their on-camera confidence while nurturing self-awareness and self-love. So you are very much in the sphere and in alignment with all of the fab values. And I know that's how we first actually came to even know about each other. So
That's right.
I'm thrilled to just dive into some of these conversations and like, where should we start first?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, let me start by saying thank you for this opportunity. I mean, it's just, you do such a fabulous job, and you are more than fabulous at 50. I know that. And I just appreciate I know we're
more
looking
than
good.
50 or more than fabulous?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Not giving away secrets here.
But thanks so much for having me today. And it's just really nice to be asked to do these. I do my own podcast as well, and I'm still a newbie, though. I'm still a newbie, but I do know that the response I get is overwhelming when people.
It's fun.
I think people just want to be asked to do things, and they want to be appreciated, and they want to be heard, and that's kind of what everything that I'm doing is around that, and just being self-aware. Yeah.
Amazing. Now, I do want to delve in a little bit about your podcast because I love the title of it. But first, I'm going to start off more with the harder questions. Like I know you've been through some big adversities, and I know there's listeners out there that we've come through a few years of the world being upside down, shall we say, and some of our lives being turned upside down. But you've been able to navigate this, and not without its bumps. Can you share a little bit about that, because it's pretty inspiring?
Oh, thank you. I think if you want me to go all the way back, back to the
just go back to kindergarten. No.
I actually, for me, it's interesting because I'm one of those people, like so many people, who have had childhood trauma, and as we know, that could be everything to everything. And was in foster care. I was abandoned as a child. My mom did the very, very best she could do for me. She loved me to pieces, but she couldn't, just was a single mom and unable to take care of me. So I was kind of bounced around from home to home, and I was in foster care, and unfortunately had the sexually abused in one foster home. But the good news is I had a voice that when I was one of those people who I when I finally said the words out loud and told somebody, I think I was 5.5.
Mhm.
And I think when I finally had the courage to say something, I was out of there like before you couldn't even blink. I was out of there. My mom had come over, packed my bags, and had me out of the house. So it was like I said it. I acknowledged. I mean, she acknowledged it and just heard me and understood me and believed me. And it was, so in that particular instance, I mean, I was so hurt and I was so moved, like she actually, the bad thing was I was a ward of the government in Calgary. So what they did was they took me away from her again and put me in another foster home. So, but the point, I think the benefit for
Broken.
me, yes, but I think a lot of people who have had trauma and childhood trauma, especially, the reason that they have the anxiety that they still have today from it is because they weren't heard, or
Mhm.
they were they were feeling separate, or not heard, or not belonging somewhere, or and they weren't taken care of. In that particular, I had a lot of other trauma. In that particular case, I was soothed and I was heard and I was taken seriously. So,
And
but
that's
I
what
got to,
trauma is. There's horrible circumstances that can happen to any of us. But lasting trauma is when it's not fully dealt with in the moment and at the
mhm,
time. And so often traumatic circumstances are not. So any amount of as simple as being heard and believed is phenomenal.
huge.
I mean, it's horrible
Hmm.
what you went through, but the fact that you were heard at that time, I think
Yeah.
has played a part in you knowing that you have a voice throughout your life.
Well, in that particular instance, unfortunately, I went through so many other things that I
Mhm.
do acknowledge and aware. But for most of us, the trauma that we go through, it's just an event that happened that we
Mhm.
all know, hey, this is just terrible. I mean, and it's traumatic for a reason, and it gives you scars. But it happened in that moment, or whatever, however long that took. But you know what? It's those feelings that we carry with us. That's really the trauma, isn't it? It's because it's
Yeah,
not happening anymore. Hasn't happened for years.
exactly.
Well, but a lot of people, and I think I'm very fortunate in that I understand that that was terrible what happened to me as a kid. I was told not to tell anybody, and I did tell somebody. I mean, I was fine. I just remember I still have irritable bowel syndrome from that. I swear that's when I was diagnosed, because it was just so much. But then again, I was in 12 different well, no, 2 different foster homes, but I was in 12 different schools from grade 1 to grade 12. I was in 12 different schools. I have this stack of report cards from all these different schools. So I was
Wow.
shuffled around a lot. So, and those are the memories that we carry. That's the trauma. That's the problem. That's what we need to deal with, is that, like, not the event, and a lot of people, when they start talking about that event, whatever it is, then they all of a sudden they start crying and get really emotional. So that they unfortunately haven't had a chance to really deal with that yet.
Process. And there's so many different ways to process. I know that, like within my fabulous health, I have clients that come in and when they're mostly being drawn to me because they want to get their hormones under control or they want weight loss or some stress management. But often when we dive deeper, there is some release of a trauma. And I love that we can do it without going into the story. But there's so many different ways to deal with that. It's like, how did you personally deal with this trauma? Because now you are helping others and you're part of I love the term happy for no reason. There's lots of different things in your toolbox here. What do you think
Very.
helped you, like, or was it at a younger age, was it your singing?
Yeah, I didn't start singing till high school. My mother was a singer,
Okay.
and so I wanted to be a singer. And as a little girl, mom sang with Tommy Banks and did a lot of singing. And she would kind of pull me out of the. I was in a convent with 100 other little girls in the O'Connell Institute. It was called. It was really an orphanage for 100 girls for 2.5 years. So, but she would, when she could, she would pull me out, and then I'd go hear her sing. And then I'd actually, when I was like 10, I sang "I Left My Heart in San Francisco" with Tommy Banks. So like that's when
Wow.
I got
Yeah.
hooked. It's like I want to be like my mom and I want to sing. So that's kind of what got me there. But the biggest thing for me, and as I think back on it now, is that I had faith at that time. My mom did a lot of things wrong as a parent, and a lot of things that I swore I would never do. But she instilled in me a faith and in God, and that I was a child. I didn't have a dad. You don't have people loving you and out there for you, but you do have God, and He's always there for you. I really believe that that was something that just pulled me through all the way. So whenever things went really haywire, I just said, "Oh, it's I just had that faith that I was
Yeah.
protected and that I was going to be okay." So that that kind of got me through. And then when I was took the Happy for No Reason certified training course, which was thank you to COVID, when we all had to just say no to everything and just lock down,
Yeah.
you wouldn't believe the things have happened to me since that has happened. So like I found a biological father I never knew, I never met.
Wow.
I
Okay. So tell
I
me,
know
how
that
did that
too.
come
I'll
about?
go I'll go back to Happy for No Reason just for a second though,
For
because
sure.
that when I took that course, and the first thing that Marcy Shimoff and Sue Morter, Marcy Shimoff was the author for that course. She was in The Secret, and I just love this. I was actually in a year-long course called Year of Miracles, and every month there was a different theme, and they
Yeah.
just wonderful guests. It was such a cool thing. And then one month she came on and said, "You know what? I'm going to offer this Happy for No Reason certified training to those of you who want to do it." And I was first like, "Nah," But then I thought about it and I took it. And the biggest thing for me in that course, and the reason that I love teaching it, is that I am 100% responsible for me. All the things that happen to me or that don't happen to me, or are things that, like, if I'm loving myself and I'm 100% responsible for me, anything that happens to me is is out of my control. I mean, and how I react to it is up to me, right? So
Right.
it taught me how this. So in the Happy for No Reason, it goes into the pillars of the heart, the mind, the body, and the soul. It talks
Yeah.
about your roof, which is your passion. It talks about your garden, all the people you surround yourself with, and the support. But biggest and foremost is the foundation that you're
Yeah.
building your home of happiness on. And for me, that foundation is I am 100% responsible, nobody else. So I can't bitch and complain when somebody does something to me or somebody's not nice to me or somebody ignores me. That was my biggest thing, is the abandonment and the not feeling safe thing as a kid. So when I got ignored, I took that so personally, and it manifested in stupid ways that now they don't. Now when that happens to me, I understand that, hey, so I could be happy for no reason, like unconditional happiness. That's kind of what I strive for, and that's what I teach now. It's really cool.
It's what,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And I'm familiar with that particular program a bit. I've trained in other programs, and getting to that point where there can be stuff happening, but we make the choice of what we're dialing into. I had it explained amazingly once with, it's like a radio station. I love this, the way they explained it. It said, it's like if you don't like that channel, you can dial it. Heck, just change what's on the stations, because or on the radio, because you own the whole station. You own the whole station.
Exactly.
And it's not always easy, but there are techniques that can
There,
help. So if people are
there.
listening and you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, I am not happy, this happened to me and that happened to me and that happened to me, it's making me unhappy, there are ways to
Mhm.
get to the point where our minds and our souls and our bodies understand that we have a choice. Our response to any situation is our response, right?
So true. It's so
Yeah.
true. But there's so many strategies, and there's so many, but there are the things that you can do. If we have time today, there's just one game I like to play, and it's just a fun game where and for me, the biggest thing that came out of that course is the self-awareness. So it's
Mhm.
just that now when I'm acting like a shithead and I'm responding poorly, it's like now I go, I know what I just did, and hey, listen, I'm really sorry. I do the whole Ho'oponopono. I'm sorry. Please forgive me right away.
Yeah, yeah, you
but
can do that. Well,
on
hey, like, if it's a game we can play with people just listening, then
yes.
because
So
we
and
have
that all
people
it is,
watching and listening,
what it's really
let's do
cool.
our game now, and then we'll
Let's
continue
do
with our
it. Just
conversation.
because it was fun. Yeah, it was something that I really remembered and I carry with me everywhere. And it's in the easy game. So it's called the blame, shame, and complain game.
Okay.
Blame, shame, and complain. And so when we blame, we're saying, well, if you hadn't done that, I wouldn't have been here, or if it's all your fault that something has
Yeah,
happened, or the government is making me pay too many
yeah.
taxes. It's your fault I'm
Or the
poor. I don't know.
weather's out to get me. Even,
The weather,
it's all external
exactly.
blame. Okay.
Exactly. So that's the one thing. Or if you complain, well, complaining is kind of where that weather comes in. When
Right.
you're complaining, it's things that you have no control over and you're still complaining. It's like the
Right.
sun is shining today. I'm going to bitch and complain about that. It's like
Yeah. Too hot.
as
There's
if
too
we
rain.
have, yeah. So there, and then the shame is, of course, anything related to how you're feeling and what you're putting on your own self. So I could feel shame from the abuse that I did. I could have blamed myself for putting myself in that position to be abused, or you know what I mean. You could blame yourself for something that's really not your fault, but you could
Right.
take that on if you want. So the game is called the blame, shame, and complain game. And what a lot of us did was we had a big bucket of jar or bowl, and you put it on your kitchen table. And every time you either blame, shame, or complain anything about anybody, what happens is you start listening to yourself. Oh shoot! And then you throw in a dollar, or you throw in a loonie, or you throw in something. Some people actually use little blackboards and put the family's name and they put check marks every time. And it's interesting because you don't realize how often you do one of those three things. Even I'm cooking and I burnt myself. Oh shit! If it wasn't for I mean, then that's a complaining right there. So I got to put a loonie in the bucket. The first week I did this, I got $64. It was like I put in a loonie every time. It was
I get
sixty
it.
four dollars.
It's a variation on the swear jar,
And you
right?
put it,
Like,
but once you start thinking about it and you
thinking about
hear
it,
yourself
more
and you're
awareness.
aware, the second week I was $32. I cut it in half, and then now I feel like and if I do complain, I go, oh no, I just want to go delete. I mean, I take it away, like I
Rewind.
rewind. Exactly. So that's just a cute, fun, not fun. It's not cute. It's a really cool game in a sense that if you want to be more aware of what you're saying, and actually those are thoughts in your head too sometimes. We'd be loaded if we put all the thoughts that we have in as a loony in the jar, right? But
Yeah,
so that's
you
just
could
a
add
fun.
in there every time we speak nasty to ourselves, every time. My blame one, or mine, and I would have put lots of money in before yours is the happy for no reason, mine the work I do with belief reparenting, is I would do something as simple as I'm driving somewhere and then I end up there's two routes to take. I take this route and I end up behind traffic and I'm like, I did the shooting all over myself. Oh, I should
Shoulda,
have
coulda.
taken the other way. I should have done this. I'm going to be like, and it was like, I was totally taking stuff on. It was making
Yeah,
myself miserable and it was nothing. Now that's on what seems as a superficial level, but I'm just using that as an example. There's
true.
so much extra that we take on ourselves or complain about that just robs our own happiness.
It does. It really
It
does.
really does.
It really does. For me, the biggest thing is just the awareness. I never realized that I was like a hamster on a treadmill all those years before COVID. I never realized we belonged to so many groups and I was just always going and just doing. And I never stopped to consider and to be deliberate about why am I doing that? And why am I hanging out over here and spending all the money over here when I could be doing something else? Like I never really stopped to think about it. So now everything I do is so deliberate. So that's why I'm fabulous at 69. I can't believe I'm going to be 70 in January. And
Wow, amazing.
and
Amazing.
but it's just like I'm only doing since COVID, like just the last 4 years, 4.5 years, I only do the things that I want to do. And it's like, what was her name that if it brings you joy, what's that clutter lady I
Oh,
forgot
I
the
know who
name of
you're talking about, but I forget her name.
where she talks about when you're decluttering and you pick it up and say, does this bring me joy? And if it does, keep it. If it doesn't, throw it out, So everything that I do
Bless
now,
it and pass it on. Yeah.
It is so deliberate in the thoughts that I make and the decisions I make now. So every single thing I'm doing now, I'm loving. I love being here with you right now. I really super appreciate this time. And everything that I do, I honestly do it because this is where I want to be. And this is what I
And I
want to do.
know every conversation I've ever had with you, I feel that exuberance of joy radiating from you, right? If we talk into the energy and so forth, is your radiant circuits, your joyful circuits are filled, and you're sharing out into the world. And talking about sharing out into the world, I want to hear a bit more about your podcast and how you share out into the world that way.
Hmm. That's just for me. I'm still a newbie at that particular part, and I'm rehoning as I go. I'm kind of honing and figuring out which way I want to go with it. I call my podcast is called Living and Loving Each Day, and my
Say
husband
that
and I
again,
have
living and loving each
living.
day. I love that title.
And you know what? I don't have my book it was on my bookshelf. I just missed it. It's not sitting there. But my husband and I did a book. He wrote, I just typed it. He's a psychologist and he wrote a book called Living and Loving Each Day with a colon, Success in a Blended Family. So we were married 34 years ago and he was on the radio on that. It's called That's Living on CJC radio for 10 years. They won a lot of awards for that. And so that's
Nice.
kind of where we started that book. And we started telling people what it's like being in a blended family. Oh my God. I mean, don't go crazy. I mean, there's so many things you need to talk about and discuss and be deliberate about. He wrote all of that cool psychological stuff and I typed it all. At the time, it was when we had the dot matrix printers, like, right, like those little really fat ones. And I remember, but every time he would write really cool stuff in the book, and then I would say, and I remember when one of the kids did this, and they would left their socks all over the floor. Like I would put little stories in there
Oh,
about it
that's fun. So you really
because
did
he had
co-write.
boys. He had three boys that were 17, 19, and 20, and I had two kids that were 6 and 7, and we came together, five of us, and I was like a single mom for 6 years before that. So really, it was my
We
three
have
months.
a bit of parallel stories here because, Ron and I have been together now over 10 years, like 11, 12, yeah, at least 11 or 12 years and combined. But at the time, when our children are all adults now, but they were in their teens when we first connected. And there is a lot to navigate, and
Not
to decide
easy.
at what point do you come together and move it past
Mhm.
dating, because you want to be cognizant of them. I'm just going to put a little plug in there. I find that sometimes I think people blend too soon. That would just be my opinion. I've seen that where the adult hearts are ready to blend, but if the
Mhm.
kids' hearts are not ready. And so we were very deliberate. I like
Mhm.
that word. We were very deliberate of waiting until by the time we said, okay, yeah, we're really connecting. We're really going to combine our households here. And the kids, instead of it being an issue, it was more like, well, it's about time.
Oh, good. See, that's the exact
Yeah,
reaction you
yeah,
want. That's the
exactly.
exact, yeah.
So
And
you guys blended how many years ago?
so we've been married 34 years now.
Wow.
And Hank
Okay.
was, and so it's very, and that's why we wrote the book just at the beginning, especially because of the blended family stuff. I was a
Yeah.
single mom, two kids, and no support ever, I felt,
Yeah.
and then he was in a loving relationship. His wife was diagnosed with cancer and then passed away. And then we came together after that. But I mean, I had none of us, but he had three boys and I had a boy and a girl. That was helpful because the youngest was the girl. And so we
Yeah.
kind of had a neat, but we wrote chapters on, one was called the in-laws, outlaws, and ex-laws. Like, because what do you do at Christmas? I mean, what do you do? I mean, how do you appease everybody? So we did all of the really cool, interesting stuff. But anyway, our book was called Living and Loving Each Day. And so it was sitting on my book and I was trying to think of a podcast name for my name for my podcast. And I was thinking, and I remember looking back and going, it was yellow and red. And it was exactly what I was thinking. I looked at it and was like, we own this. Why not use this title? So that's
I think
why
it's perfect.
I
I think
love
it's
it.
perfect.
And
I
so,
love
and
it.
now, and I've been interviewing people. My daughter has a nonprofit and it's dedicated to parents with children with disabilities. So
Mm,
at the very beginning, I was only doing podcasts just with stories of these parents, these
okay.
amazing. of parents who had children. And my daughter, her daughter, my granddaughter, at 8 weeks old, had near SIDS. So
Wow.
my daughter had gone through this where, she put her to bed and she went and did the dishes and came back and she was in the crib and blew.
Mm.
So the good news is that she called 911 so quickly. There was actually a nurse lived next door, and she was like banging on the door to get them to come over. And so by the time that I was called and got there, Calais was in the back of the ambulance and she had been revived. Like,
Wow.
oh my gosh, a
That
lot of prayer. And then, but so she had she was in the stollery for 5 weeks. We were over her bed where you can't, in the ICU where you can't sit, just stand there, for 5 weeks. And she has it's called cortical vision impairment,
mm,
CVI, which is where her eyes are fine. It looks like she can see you, but the messages aren't going to her brain. So she sees
right.
color, she sees lights, but she can't see us. But
Mm,
she can't walk independently or anything unless, so it's not black for her, but she does see color and light, but she can't discern what she's seeing. It's not a processing problem. And she has cerebral palsy as well. So, but I mean, she's like our ray of sunshine and we just love her to pieces. But so I was helping Candace interview these parents of other children with disabilities. And now my daughter has a nonprofit called I Can Play Too. And it's just, so my original intent was to kind of help her get that off the ground and interview parents and interview pharmacies that deliver diapers. Like, come on, like these moms don't have time to go out and get stuff. So we were just trying to
absolutely.
interview them. There's so much support out there. Anyway, that's how that started. And then but when I started doing my own podcast, I was kind of combining a few different things, the self-awareness stuff. I just had Danny Hooper on yesterday, who was hilarious because I've known him
Awesome.
forever. And he's just living life to the fullest. So those kind of inspiring people I wanted to interview,
Yeah. Well, that is inspiring. And tell me when you started your podcast. How long ago?
in January, so
Like
it's
just a few
already,
months ago. So
yes.
I'm just going to point out there. Here's what's fun for anyone listening is if you have a passion for anything out there, jump in and do it. I mean, you just said that you're like 69 this year. You're turning 70 in a year and you started a podcast. So if anyone says, "Oh, I'm too old for that," it's like what's a good term? Boulder Dash. What am I allowed to say on the air here? It's
BS, like
yeah,
not, it's just,
exactly.
that's
It's
so true.
everybody appeals to a different age group or demographic or interest. So if you have something you're interested in, a story and a message out there, share it with the world. Go write your
Oh,
book. Go write that children's book you've been waiting to. Go travel. I just did another talk with someone traveling, or like you, go ahead and just start your podcast and have some fun. Like one inspiration you are to your children and your grandchildren is going to
yeah.
be phenomenal.
I honestly do what brings me joy. And I'm still singing. And my mom actually, she used to sing in a club, and anybody over 40 that's listening to this might remember in the Edmonton, we had a club called the Trocadero. It was a dance club. It was back
Okay.
in the 50s. And my mom got $7 a night, and she was the lead singer in that big band. It was a big band,
Oh,
16 piece.
tonight.
That was all the 40s and 50s jive kind of music, right? And
Wow.
and so what's interesting is I got a call just like again 4 years ago or 3 years ago now, I think, and then where George Carmichael, the leader of that band, phoned me to say, "Hey Sue, will you be our lead singer?" And it
Oh,
was
very cool.
like how cool is that? My mom was in that band, like it's not the same band, but I mean
Yeah.
it's the same piece orchestra, same music. And I grew up with that music. So for me, so now I'm a lead singer in the Trocadero Orchestra, which is the coolest thing ever. And I'm also singing now because Klondike Days, well, not Klondike Days, but if you are older and you remember the Klondike Days, what it used to be like, I was the first ever local Klondike Kate. So I auditioned and I actually won.
Oh, really? Very
And
fun.
so I'm the first local. And so now Explore Edmonton is having an event with 5 of us Klondike Kates are coming back, and we're supposed to get in our costumes, and we're on the grounds doing question and answer on Thursday, the 27th of July at the Expo Center.
Yeah.
And it's Q&A, and we're doing a beard growing contest. I don't know if we're judging the winners or something. And then I get to
Maybe.
sing stuff too. I get to sing with Charlie Austin. So
Amazing.
I mean, I'm only doing fun things. I
You are
can't,
doing so much fun. I just
can't
love
wait.
everything you're doing. And I'm sad that we're basically coming to an end of our recording. Like that went by in a blink of an eye. But before we end, just kind of three top tips of wisdom, pearls of wisdom for living life and really radiating out this joy and love and happy for no reason. What would you say?
Oh my
Three
gosh.
three little pearls of wisdom from
Of
Sue.
wisdom. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Well, it always comes to my mind that I'm responsible for my own self and my own happiness. That
Yep, that's number one.
number one. And like you're never too old. It's never too late to do anything. You just do it.
Just
Right?
do it.
I
I
mean,
love it.
never,
Go for it.
never.
Just do it. And
And
you're never too old to start something new as long as you feel able bodied and just round up support. That's fantastic. And number
right.
three,
Don't listen to anybody else tell you anything. You're on your own here, and just listen to your heart and
yeah,
listen to your mind. And that's my third one, is just to listen to your heart and be open hearted, and just to not and all that unconditional or all that conditional stuff out there. You just ignore that and just listen. You
perfect.
know.
Perfect. And go and listen to her podcast because
Yes.
I know I'm going to be tapping in and seeing what's there. And you and I actually have planned later in the summer to have a conversation. So we're going to be able to continue this conversation
This
over
will be
there.
great. I really appreciate what you're doing, and you're
Well,
fabulous at
thank
50.
you.
You're fabulous. And we might have changed the numbers though. Fabulous. I don't
Well,
know.
it
I'm feeling
really, if I wasn't the one that named it, so I'm looking at maybe I could change it to fabulous beyond 50, something along those lines.
50 and better, right? Fabulous
50 and
50 and better.
better. I don't know. We're going to do that. But it was really kind of fabulous at 50 and beyond. Like it was meant to be this sort of when you hit 50, it's like you truly earn your badge of I'm fabulous and keep on going.
That's right. That's right. And you are
Yeah.
fabulous. I really appreciate you very much. Thank you
Well,
so much
thank
for having
you.
me on today.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And if you check out the show notes, it'll have more information about Fab at 50 if you're new to our community, and more information about Susan and where you can reach out and find out about her. And if you're in the Edmonton area, maybe you can catch her singing. That would be amazing.
Come on down. Come on. Yeah.
Sounds good. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Thank you
being
so
here
much.
today, everyone. Bye bye. Thank you so much for tuning in today. But before you leave, I'm curious. What pearl of wisdom are you taking away from today's episode? I do hope it held some inspiration or information for you to live your best life. If you are not yet part of our sisterhood, I invite you to join our community by visiting our website, fabulousat50.com, and you'll receive a free copy of our ebook, Make Mine Fabulous: 21 Ways to Energize Your Life. It is packed with loads of tips and tricks. Plus, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe to this podcast and leave us a review to let us know what you think. Remember, keep choosing fabulous. It's never too late to live the life you deserve. Catch you on the next episode.